Let me be brutally honest with you, because nobody else will be. I've made money. I've lost money. I've watched people blow their entire financial futures on bad bets they thought were sure things. And after decades in the investment world, sitting across the table from thousands of entrepreneurs on Shark Tank, managing hundreds of millions of dollars in assets, I've developed a very clear picture of what works and what absolutely destroys wealth. Today I'm going to tell you about 4 specific assets that I believe you should stop investing in right now, not tomorrow, right now. These are not hypothetical warnings. These are patterns I've watched wreck real people's financial lives. And if you're holding any of these, you need to seriously reconsider your strategy before it costs you everything you've worked for. Before I get into it, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 4 assets are you currently invested in. Be honest. You might be surprised how many people in this community are making the exact same mistake. Let's learn together. All right, let's get into it. The first asset I want to talk about is something almost everyone has been guilty of at some point, and frankly, it's one of the most emotionally seductive traps in personal finance. I'm talking about your primary residence, your home, treated as an investment. Now, before you fire back at me in the comments, hear me out. I'm not saying don't buy a home. I'm saying stop treating it like it's an investment vehicle. Because it isn't. Not in the traditional sense. A true investment puts money into your pocket every single month. Your house, it takes money out. Property taxes, maintenance, insurance, mortgage interest. These are not returns. These are expenses dressed up in the costume of equity. And here's the stat that stops people cold. According to Robert Shiller's long-term housing data, U.S. home prices have historically returned just about 1% per year above inflation over the last century. 1%. You could have beaten that by simply buying an index fund and going to sleep. The emotional attachment people have to their homes causes them to over-allocate their net worth into a single illiquid, non-income producing asset. I've seen people walk into retirement with 80% of their wealth locked inside 4 walls and a roof, and no cash flow to show for it. Diversification isn't just a strategy, it's survival. If your home equity represents the bulk of your wealth, you are not investing, you are gambling on real estate appreciation, and that is a very different conversation. The second asset on this list is one that's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. And good, because comfortable investors tend to be poor investors. I'm talking about collectibles. Sports cards, wine, art, sneakers, vintage watches, rare coins, you name it. Now look, I collect art. I appreciate beautiful things. But let me tell you something that took me a long time to accept. Passion assets are not a reliable wealth-building strategy for most people. The collectibles market is illiquid, largely unregulated, and driven almost entirely by sentiment. There is no dividend. There is no cash flow. The market for a particular item can disappear overnight because tastes change, demographics shift, or a new generation simply doesn't care about what the previous one idolized. The sports card bubble of the early 2020s is a perfect example. Prices went absolutely parabolic during the pandemic, driven by stimulus money and nostalgia. Then the market cooled fast. People who bought at the peak are sitting on assets that may take a decade to recover, if they ever do. And you can't pay your mortgage with a graded rookie card. I'm not saying never buy a beautiful watch or a piece of art you love. I'm saying never confuse that with investing. The moment you start calling your collection an investment, you've stopped being a rational allocator of capital and started rationalizing an emotional purchase. Know the difference. It could save you years of financial pain. The third asset is one that's going to ruffle some serious feathers in the comments section, and I genuinely can't wait to read your responses. I want you to think very carefully before putting significant capital into unproven speculative cryptocurrencies and meme coins. Now, before the crypto community comes for me, I've said this before and I'll keep saying it. I'm not anti-crypto. I own Bitcoin. I own Ethereum. But there is a massive, canyon-sized difference between established digital assets with real adoption and track records, and the thousands of speculative altcoins and meme tokens that are essentially lottery tickets dressed up in blockchain technology. Most of these projects have no utility, no development roadmap that gets executed, no real institutional backing, and communities that exist primarily to pump prices so early holders can exit. Studies have shown that the vast majority of altcoins that launch eventually go to zero. Zero. Not down 50%, not down 80%, zero. Gone. And yet I watch everyday people, teachers, nurses, young professionals, dump their savings into these tokens because someone on social media told them it was going to 100x. That is not investing. That is speculation with no margin of safety, and it has no place in a disciplined portfolio. If you want crypto exposure, stick to the majors. Keep it to a responsible allocation. I'd say no more than 5% for most investors, and treat the rest of the space with the same skepticism you'd give a stranger on the street asking to hold your wallet. Now the fourth asset. This one is personal. I feel strongly about this because I've watched it silently destroy more financial potential than almost anything else on this list. I'm talking about whole life insurance policies being sold to you as investment vehicles. The insurance industry has done an extraordinary job convincing middle-class families that whole life, universal life, and variable life products are sophisticated wealth-building tools. They are not. They are, in most cases, one of the most expensive and inefficient ways to grow your money. The fees embedded in these products are staggering. The returns, particularly in the early years, are deeply negative because of how commissions and expenses are structured. The cash value growth is slow, often opaque, and nowhere near what you could achieve by simply buying term life insurance, which is pure, clean protection, and investing the premium difference into a low-cost index fund. That strategy, famously called buy term and invest the difference, has been studied extensively, and for the vast majority of people, it dramatically outperforms whole life products over a 20 to 30-year horizon. Now, there are specific use cases for these products. Very high net worth estate planning situations where tax efficiency matters in ways that don't apply to most people watching this video. But if someone sold you a whole life policy by leading with investment returns and cash value accumulation, rather than pure death benefit protection, ask hard questions. Demand a full fee disclosure and go do the math yourself. You deserve to know exactly where your money is going and what it's actually earning. Here's the thread that connects all four of these. None of them are inherently evil. None of them are illegal. What makes them dangerous is the narrative wrapped around them. The story that your house is your best investment. The story that your wine collection is appreciating like an asset class. The story that the next altcoin is your ticket to generational wealth. The story that your insurance policy is secretly a brilliant financial product. All four of these narratives get sold to people who are trying to do the right thing, who want to build a future, protect their families, and retire with dignity. And that's exactly who gets hurt. People who are trying. And that's why I'm telling you this, because the financial services industry doesn't always have your best interest at heart. I learned that the hard way earlier in my career, and it cost me real money before I wised up. The formula for building real wealth is not complicated. It's just not exciting enough to sell. Live below your means. Diversify across real income-producing assets. Keep your fees brutally low. Be patient when the market tests your conviction, and be deeply, deeply skeptical of anything that promises extraordinary returns without an equally extraordinary explanation of the risk involved. You want to build something real? Then start by protecting what you already have. Stop letting your money leak out through bad asset choices, high fees, and emotional decision-making. Every dollar you lose to a bad investment is not just that dollar. It's every dollar that dollar could have compounded over the next 20 years. That's the true cost. And once you understand that, once it really clicks, the way you see money changes forever. I built my career on being direct, on telling people things they don't necessarily want to hear in the moment, but absolutely need to hear for their future. That's not going to change. Now, I want to hear from you. Which one of these four surprised you the most? Are you currently holding any of these assets? What's your plan? Drop it in the comments. Let's have a real conversation, the kind that actually changes financial outcomes. And if this gave you something to think about, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because information shared is wealth protected. And that's something I can always get